All right, donks, here we are. Time for the Monday Morning Analyst as I untuck my shirt that had been shoved into my pants irresponsibly. All right, so as I mentioned before, if I went back and I was just like, hey, usually what I like to do is like to look at a fight and then discover patterns and then explain to you how somebody won. But I don't know that I can really do that this time, right? Because the win came out of nowhere. It was partly set up by some of the other things he was doing, that being Anthony Pettis. But I thought that that would be really unsatisfying. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to look at some ways that Pettis was able to achieve victory. Yes, the ending is the most important part, but some other things that maybe he was doing that I thought were kind of interesting. And then I want to look at some of the ways in which Wonderboy, who is known as this guy who ducks and dodges for very good reason, he has been hit a few times in fights. I went and I looked at all the times he's been knocked down inside the UFC, and then this one time. Is there any common thread? Yes, there are. There are many common threads. I think I've put them all together. Okay, let's go to the slides if we can here. Here we are. Here's how Showtime bested Wonderboy. Now let me have a mea culpa. Last week, I think I had the Jorge Masvidal's Mastery, and I misspelled Mastery. I had like 2 Y's in it. Kids, get some sleep. Because if you're like me and you sleep about 2-3 hours a night before one of these shows, you can't even spell Mastery right. So I apologize to everyone for being a world-class dumbass. All right, but that is now passed. I got 4 hours of sleep last night, so I'm feeling better. Okay, so this is just about the fight itself. I'm not going to go through all that stuff in terms of the visual evidence, just sort of listing these things. But let me put this up just a little bit. How did this gentleman get it done? Number one, no cage cutting. A lot of times when guys are facing off striking, if I have center position and you're on the outside, I want to corral so that you can't go around, that I keep you in front of me and I limit your options. I noticed he didn't do that. Now, that could have been an error because most of the time they tell you you definitely want to. In fact, Tyron Woodley, when he fought Wonderboy both times, he made it a point to, in fact, cage cut. But here's what I noticed. By not trying to corral, he wasn't wasting energy. I think a lot of times these guys try to corral Wonderboy, and they end up getting lit up because he'll go this way and fake, they'll follow, and he'll either get out of the way, or he'll fake, they'll commit, and then he'll crack them as they come into the punch. So rather than doing that, he just chased Wonderboy. But what would be the advantage there? The advantage would be with a high shell, which we'll talk about in a second, he's able to push into him all the time, constantly getting Wonderboy to back up. So rather than trying to waste energy corralling where you can be countered and it wouldn't be that effective because this guy can go lateral movement really well, just chase him. But just make sure he's always on the back foot, always on the back foot. Maybe that was a mistake, but that seems to me like for a striker like Anthony Pettis, that does not seem accidental. That seems quite intentional. Number 2, forward pressure defensive shell. You guys saw this. So there was no cage cutting. He was walking right into him. Now, he was trying to turn angles on him. He wasn't trying to just drive straight, but he was generally coming forward, pushing back Wonderboy, and then he had this tight defensive shell. Why is that? Because you're not going to be able to anticipate some of his counters. On top of that, you'll see this later, Wonderboy does throw hooks, but his leg kicks, his kicks tend to be very varied. His punches tend to be a little more linear. He throws a lot of jabs and crosses. He doesn't throw a lot of upper hooks, and he doesn't throw a lot of hooks generally, or uppercuts and then hooks. He doesn't throw a lot of those. He throws them sometimes, but they're not a big part of his game. He's a lot of linear punches, right? So if you have this forward shell, you can parry, and then you can just absorb, and you can work sort of in this space. Plus, your hands are up. If your hands are up here, not only can you parry and block, Wonderboy likes to be here and then come up from the hip a little bit. But for Anthony Pettis, if your hands are here, pop, pop, you have a shorter line to travel, and then you can get right back to defensive sensibility. So that puts you in a position to make quick contact, get back, and then get right back to your defense. So you pop. So if you have the jab, it's you pop and then coming right back, right? Pop, pop, back, back. I mean, you're not, you're coming. You're in a position where short contact, defense still in place. That's what he was doing there with that. So and you saw him. He caught a lot of stuff off the front of his arms. He parried a lot of stuff. Yes, he got hit a lot too. But that's going to happen when you have that kind of a style. That really kept him, I'm not going to say safe, but as safe as you could be given the circumstances, right? Number 3, completely changed targeting. Put the Put the thumbnail up for a second, please. I got to show you guys this. I went and I verified it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but it really is true. Okay, go back for a second. Look at this. Let me blow this up here for a second. So, in the blue is Pettis. In the red is Thompson. Look at these numbers, man. This shocked me. I couldn't believe this. Here we go. See that 15%? That is how often, I'll blow it up even more if I can. See that 15%? That is how often Pettis targeted Wonderboy's head. 15% is the lowest of any Zuffa fight Anthony Pettis has ever been in. He's never targeted the head of an opponent less. Look at this number 62, leg attacks. That is the most he has ever targeted the legs as a percentage of the attack of any Zuffa fight. This is totally outside of his comfort zone. I've seen situations where this number was 0, and I've seen situations where this number was 100. He can distribute a little bit more. He's had, I think, the Jeremy Stevens fight, he was around like 40 or 50%, right? So he can vary it up. But to go this disparate is totally crazy. So let's go back here a second. Right here. Completely changed targeting. That is not typically how he fights. I wouldn't call him a headhunter, although he does prefer to attack the head, particularly in MMA. He is a kicker, so he does kick to the body. You've seen the kick to the head of Joe Lauzon. But he had to completely invert his style of attack. He did not really try to headhunt Wonderboy. That's how a lot of guys get countered when they headhunt him. If you're reaching for his head, particularly if there's a height differential, that's when he backs up and then pops you. He does it all the time. He'll pop you and then change angles, so you're coming by him like Wile E. Coyote, and he just tears you up. He really tried to avoid that. So what he did was, I knew I don't want to headhunt because that's how I'm not going to reach him because he'll lean. B, if I make contact, I might get countered. So what did he do? Every time he was going away, he was slamming into his legs. And he was doing that old Rob Kaman where the one leg goes across both thighs at once kind of bit, which is just a horrible feeling. Have you ever had someone who's good at leg kicking do that to you? It's one thing to take it on the shin or the side of the meat, and then even the calf. Actually, I've never taken a calf kick, but they look pretty painful. But I have had it where they go across both your thighs. Bro, that is terrible. That is a terrible feeling. So he was doing that. So where is he putting all the attacks? Here and down, like from the rib cage and down. That's where all the attacks were going. I think that contributed in the end a little bit to some of the surprise that ultimately took over Wonderboy. 4, respond to offense immediately. You guys saw this all the time. Wonderboy would kick, he would respond. Or Wonderboy would throw a punch, he would try and counter. Always trying to be in there. And in fact, if you go to the numbers here, that is high for him. That's 58% for Anthony Pettis. That's about 10% above normal. And if you look at the two, I have the 2 round breakdowns. Yeah, so you have here 48% and 66%. 48 is right in line with how he normally competes. 66 is well above average for him. So he was in there trying to make contact at all times. And in terms of accuracy, he was a little bit behind because Wonderboy was, really putting it on him in the second in terms of overall volume, but he wasn't that far behind in the first. He was trying to keep pace with him, never letting that volume accumulate, because I think as that volume begins to accumulate, you begin to make some bad decisions, and I think he really wanted to avoid that. And then last, finish with the element of surprise. So that is where the rest of this story comes in. So you see the numbers here. That takes us to this. Okay. This is the element of surprise. So and we're going to look at the finish here in just a second, but I thought to myself, if I just went over that, what is it in the end? It is a well-timed Superman punch from the right side. Leg comes up, you cork it back, and then you throw. Typically, it's a bit of a linear punch, as you'll see. This one kind of comes over the top, and there's an ever so slight delay. But I thought to myself, how is it this guy could never get knocked out and have this many fights? Surely there have been times where he's been knocked down. So I went to Fight Metric and I found every round where he's been knocked down. He got knocked down, depends how you want to count it. He got knocked down in both Woodley fights. He got knocked down in the Ellenberger fight. He got knocked down in the Till fight. Here is what those show us. Number 1, if you can collapse the distance on him quickly, it puts you in position to land a big shot. There's different ways guys do this. One is that they'll stutter step their way in. Sometimes they run in. They often get countered when they run in. But what you often notice is this quick pocket collapse. Guys don't like slowly inch their way in, punch, circle back out, come around, they're blitzing right into him, man. And, sometimes they set it up better than other ones, but you got to take away that distance fast. Why? Because he relies on getting that space all the time. So if you can switch it up on him where now you're the one moving into him quickly rather than him moving away quickly, obviously easier said than done, but that's a big component. Number 2, take advantage of the fence line or his forward pressure. Number 1, this doesn't work for Pettis necessarily, but for Woodley, it was pretty great. Woodley did try to cage cut. Put him on the fence line. He gets tall because your behavior changes when you get put up against the fence line. We've talked about on this program before. And then number 2, his forward pressure. So sometimes he sees you coming and he'll try and pop you. And sometimes he'll pop you at an angle. That's the safest way to do it. Sometimes if you have this style where it's all about timing and precision and accuracy and reading the moment, and you can just pop guys coming in, if you land, it's great. But sometimes you're probably not going to land, or you might land halfway and now you're stuck in position. That's when you have to take advantage of that. That's when the distance has been collapsed, yeah? Number 3, circle around his straight punch. He throws a lot of linear shots. On virtually all of these, you're gonna see Wonderboy throw a shot. These guys are gonna slip, and then they're gonna come over the top with their own punch. It happens over and over and over and over again. Also, what does this tell you? He's never been knocked out with a head kick. He's never been knocked out with a kick to the face. He's never been knocked out with a flying knee. Nothing. It is boxing. That's where the distance comes in. You got to put hands on him. That's why that strategy that Pettis had was kind of interesting, because the way to finish this guy and to really do damage to him, you got to lay these on him. Now, maybe he was chipping away at him the whole time so that he could slow him down and take advantage of him later, which we'll talk about. But if you really want to put him away, you can invest kicks to the body and you can invest leg kicks. In the end, the best damage comes from one of these against him, which means you got to be in that position, in that range for that to happen. Lastly, counterattack off of or use Thompson's commitment. It's one to get his pressure. Sometimes he'll move into you physically and not throw. Sometimes he'll have to move into you physically to throw. Those two are kind of connected. In other words, if he is moving into you, take advantage of it. Even if it's just a position change. If he's moving into you to throw, take advantage of it. Either way, you're getting rid of that distance, yeah? So, here's proof of what I'm telling you. And by the way, I mentioned this before, as I always do. This is not the best analysis. This is not the only analysis. This is not complete analysis. This is my analysis, but I believe I'm going to make an argument for it with evidence. I encourage you to go and check out what everyone else has to say who also does this kind of thing. All right, so here's the Ellenberger one. I had forgotten Ellenberger even knocked him down. So here's Ellenberger coming into him. Now, by the way, he gets hit more often when both fighters are in orthodox stances. He does get hit when they're in opposite stances, but a little bit less. It's when he goes from southpaw to then orthodox that the other orthodox fighters find a moment to hit him. But here he is, right? He's going to switch to southpaw. Now watch Ellenberger, what he does here. Ellenberger's trying to take the angle, and then he takes it away from him. When I say the angle, I mean the lead foot angle, right? Now watch this. He's going to line up that left hand. Wonderboy is. Now watch. He's going to fade. Now watch Ellenberger. Drives into him. See that? He double jabs into him. Ready? 1, 2. And Woodley, what am I saying, Woodley? Wonderboy tries to greet him. And it lands, but not enough. So here's the problem. He takes it, resets for a moment. Now look where they are physically. Look how far apart they were here. So far apart. Nothing's going to land here. But if you can jam your way inside, you might eat one. But now when he resets position, because he is backed up where? Whoop, whoop. He is here. That is the danger zone. This is the warning track, yeah? Now, he's much closer to him, so as a consequence, there's your straight punch. Ellenberger gets out of the way, and hooks a punch on top. What do you think happens next? Let's go to the next one. By the way, he got up and won the fight. I mean, don't misunderstand me. But there you go. All right. This is the first Woodley fight, not the second. This is the first one, I believe. Yeah, because their shorts are all Reebocked bad. So this one actually, you'll have to get the thumbnail ready for just a second. So what you're going to see here is he's going to actually, so he's pushing Woodley, right? He's coming into him. Woodley's absorbing it, waiting for his moment. But, you know, Wonderboy's going to have his too. Throws one, kind of connects, and then he swarms him. Woodley tries to clinch. All right, now put the thumbnail up. Now Woodley's going to go after him. Let me get this ready. All right, here we go. Put it back up. So Woodley is out here a little bit, right? Here's where they are. So almost boxing range. You could maybe lean and get him, but it's a little bit too far. So he steps laterally and then kind of, you can see him range finding a little bit here. He's just going to, he kind of fake half double jabs his way inside and then tries to parry any shot that's there and then throw a right. At the same time, Wonderboy tries to greet him. That's the peril of that style. If you can use that style to meet someone coming in and you can get away or angle out, man, you're going to tear people up. But that's got to be really precise all the time. Not a lot of room for error. So in this case, he gets popped and then dropped. Fight Metric does not count this as the drop. They count this as the drop, it turns out. Now look where they are. Now look how much closer he is, right? Charge into the guy. So here he throws a right. He tries to chase him around. Now you see how Tyron is cage cutting here? That's something that Pettis did not do. He's going to follow around. He's just, you can see him charging. I mean, it's like a video game, loading that right hand, man. Boom, tries to throw it. Wonderboy has a hanger, doesn't work. Tries to clip him with the left there, doesn't work. Cage cuts to keep him back against the fence, right? Sort of blitzes him here a little bit. And then I think he drops him just a second. Level changes, can't get him with the left hook. Chases around. Again, look how he's cage cutting. Pettis did the opposite. Pettis would like follow him, right? Here we are. So, as this lateral movement happens, Wonderboy tries to time a shot like that, kind of fakes with the right and then goes with the left. Woodley slips it, boom. So when he commits to you in short range and you can slip and get over the top, again, what do you notice before? It's a straight punch that misses and your hooking punch comes over and scores on him. You got to slip. It's just like the Ellenberger punch. Slip over the top, right? Let's go to the next one. All right, here is the second Woodley-Thompson fight. All right, here he is. Same thing, cage cutting. It was amazing how much more energy he had in this fight than I remembered. Way more, yeah? Here he is. All right, backs off. Let's look at their distance here, right? You're getting pretty close in the punching range. You're a little bit outside of it, but you're pretty close. So he steps in to throw, misses with the linear shot. What do you think is going to happen? Bop, and it drops him. Same thing. So when he comes into you, you have to read he's trying to take advantage of you. He's trying to take advantage of Woodley fading this way, and he wants to greet him with the left, right? Woodley just kind of gets out of the way of it, or he misjudges it, and then he just comes over the top with the right, and it stumbles him backwards, and then he gets up on him here, and he gets up, and then he just stays on him here in close, tight range, boom, and then drops him, and he goes down one more time. So let's take a look at the Darren Till contest, because that's another one. Here we are. How does Darren Till drop him? Now, Darren Till was the only southpaw who dropped him. So let's see. Here we are. What does he do? He chases him with the jab, and you see he's cutting a little bit too. He's not doing hardcore cage cutting in this particular scenario, but he's jabbing him backwards. He's jamming into the space. So he's trying to be fleet of foot. Now he's going to get trapped, right? Which is the best place to do your work for the most part against him. He's jabbing into him. So now look where he is. Watch what happens to his posture. He comes straight up, man. He's got that one leg coming out a little bit, but he's He's backed up so far, and he's also in this corner. So the exiting is going to be a little hard, whether if he was on a lateral, if you're in here, it's harder versus if I'm here. Flat space, corners, right? So here he is. Although I suppose it depends on the fighter a little bit, but in any case. So just watch. So he's got Darren Till, puts that hand out to measure, see where he is, right? You see Thompson tries to counter. And look at Thompson. He has nowhere to really engage. Till slips it, hooks over the top. And what happens? He goes down. It's when you're coming into him, he wants to counter. If you can slip his counter to your pressure, you can slip that and then come over the top. Dude, you can do good work. You can do good work. Easier said than done. Look at how many guys he's knocked out. Look at how many guys he's viciously hurt. Look at how many faces he's bloodied. We're talking about a handful of times over a UFC career. So, you have to be very respectful of his ability. We're just trying to figure out what happened with Anthony Pettis, which brings us to that moment. By the way, he got up, and I thought, by the way, Wonderboy won this fight, but that's just me. So here we are. Knowing all the things that we know, what can we say about this one? Here's what I noticed. So he throws this punch, which kind of lands, right? Boom, a little bit. I mean, kind of grazes, but it's this kick that gets the job done. So he range finds with this hand, puts the kick out, but you notice the kick gets kind of, you see how Pettis parries it? Watch this arm. Parries it. So now you're not even really sideways. Your hips are kind of opened a little bit, just a little bit, but don't pay attention to that. Pay attention to his weight. Look at him now, right? So here he is. So he's straddling the ESPN logo, yeah? So he comes in, throws the punch, still straddling, measures, moves his back foot now inside the warning track, kicks. Now look where he is. Before you were straddling, now you are inside the warning track. You are much, much closer. You have shortened the distance. On top of that, look what happens to his body when the kick comes down. He has planted his weight. You see that with the leg? He plants his weight. So the kick kind of misses. It opens his hips. He's narrowed the space, and now he's got an angle where that right hand could land on him no problem. It was a bit of a tactical mistake, if you can just be honest about it. It'd be one thing if he threw it, landed, and then got back out, but watch his feet. Watch just Wonderboy's feet. Pop. He can't even get outside the warning track before Pettis lands on him. What did we say before? Quickly collapse. Now, there's no hooking punch for him to throw as he's slipping another one because Wonderboy didn't see it coming. But if you notice, there's a bit of a delay on the timing here. Watch. Ready? It's hard to, you have to watch it in real time. But this lands, he pops, he kind of cocks it, but a Superman punch is when it comes way up and then you throw it, and then as the leg comes back, it comes almost linear, like Superman, flying into you. This one kind of hooks around and lands like just a half second behind when it's supposed to. So the issue here is he has planted his weight as he's gotten closer to him. He's not thrown hardly any punches to the head. The least targeted head of an opponent Anthony Pettis has had in his Zuffa career, including WEC fights. He bounces off the cage to quickly close the distance, and he used the element of surprise here to catch him as he came in too close. So you can pressure him and get him against the fence, or when he pressures you, if you can quickly bounce back, you can get him. Let's look at it from another angle. Boom, and then he throws him here. Here's another angle. Watch this. So here we are, straddling the logo, measures, steps that left foot behind, doesn't really land, and he brings his back down. It's not totally open. His hips aren't exactly open. His shoulders are a little open, but Pettis throws, and you can see this hand kind of comes down. I think he was expecting this to land, the left, but he kind of hooks around the top of the glove. This is what I'm saying when the reaction was delayed. Superman punches are typically straight shots. You can throw a Superman jab, you can throw a Superman hook, you can throw a Superman cross, but most Superman punches are crosses, typically, not always. And here he just throws around the top. You see that? And it's just ever so slightly delayed. And it's because he didn't see it. He wasn't expecting it to come from that angle. We saw last week when Jorge Masvidal threw that left over the top, he had never really thrown it from that stance. He had thrown it from a different one, so it had a slightly different trajectory and look. When he changed the stance and then the way the punch was coming in, it totally confused him. I think it's the exact same thing here. Here's one more look at it real quickly, and then we'll call it a day. Boom. Good job by referee Herb Dean, too, by the way. I mean, getting in there as fast as he can. So here's that kick, kind of slides off of him, and now look how forward his weight is. He's now stuck here. And as he went for like a push kick against a guy who just has a lot of ingenuity about how to use the fence, either to jump off of it or just to bounce your rear end off of it and propel your way forward, which he does. And here's the delayed timing. It just comes just a half second. It's supposed to be like here. And so you can see there's just a little bit of a timing and a trajectory angle change that makes it look like, or made it be so devastating. So put the thumbnail up, please, one more time. Yeah, and then we'll do this, blah, blah, blah. All right, so one more time. One more time. Okay, put that up, please. Not picking on Wonderboy. He had a tough loss. He was gracious with our time. I'm just trying to be analytical about it, hence the name of the segment. I'm just trying to be analytical and figure out if you take all those knockdowns, which again, we're just talking about a handful of knockdowns over a long UFC career. He's an incredible fighter. He'll be back. It's decorated. I'm just trying to detect patterns. These are the patterns. You got to collapse that distance quickly. A lot of different ways you can do it, but you got to do it. You got to take advantage of the fence line, either pressuring him back and he can't move, or his forward pressure, as you saw in the Pettis case. You have to circle around his straight punch. He's going to try and counter you as you come in. If you can slip it and throw a hooking punch around it, you can do good work. And then 4, you got to counterattack off of use of his own commitment, as we indicated in the first. And then, of course, the numbers speak to this. And this is how Pettis got it done. Unlike Woodley, did not cage cut. Just kind of stuck on him with forward pressure, with that defensive shell. Completely changed the targeting. He's totally switched up how he applies attacks in literally historic ways. He's never done this before, ever, in 2 ways, leg attacks and targeting the head. Respond to the offense immediately. He just kind of tried to keep pace with Wonderboy. He was losing it a little bit, but he was trying. And then finish off with the element of surprise. He was so not targeting the head, and he collapsed that distance so quickly, Wonderboy just wasn't really ready for it. And that's how you get big, big wins like that in the sport.